allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll call this regular board meeting to order. Roll call shows that everybody but Peter is present, and he is excused. February 1st, 2018 regular board meeting minutes. Any questions or corrections, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. February 1st, 2018 closed session board meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Are there any agenda changes? None? Just garbage on my way here. We have a public hearing?
No, I was working with the other one, I didn't get it crossed off.
License and permits.
We have one operator's license, number 104, from Megan Schenzer to work at Quick Trip. This one has received the sergeant's signature and approval, so I would be looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Pre-registered citizens to be heard.
Martin Baker of Crest Street.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, later on tonight, you're going to be asked to vote on a change, reference to the police commission. With that in mind, I'd like to talk to you just a short bit about the police commission and what it does. Okay? The police commission is consistent of 5 long-standing members of this community. Everybody's been here for years. We serve as a check and balance for the police department, to the Hortonville law enforcement. And in that capacity, we also serve as one of the steps in the hiring process. And in doing so, we put these new police officers and the chief candidates before 5 people. And we put them in circumstances where we can see how they respond to what they do. We are also where the public would come to file a complaint about the police department. So if there's an issue, and this is what happened under Chief Sullivan, people file a complaint. And that's part of our purpose. But on the same token, we're also there for the police department to appeal disciplinary actions. This is all by statute and how we have worked in the past. One of the things that the police commission has that you won't have if you do away with it is the power of subpoena during its investigations and the power of compelling testimony. One of the things you're going to lose if you do away with the commission is the hiring, having them reviewed to the hiring board. You're going to go to a situation where one person hires. We're going back, if you've been here long enough and you go back about 22 years ago or so. We had a village where one person controlled it all. And the same token, we had people driving through town drunk that was not allowed to be stopped. They were special people. And you're going back that direction by doing away with the ordinance and with the police commission that handles problems. I understand that you're proposing to replace the board with hearing examiner or something along that line. Keep in mind, you're going to be having a political appointee, and you're going to have everything be decided by one person instead of a board of 5 of your village residents. Back in those days, we had a number of officers get into trouble. And this was long before your time, guy. But we had officers getting fist fights with other officers. We had officers kicking down doors drunk. We had officers sitting on duty naked in a bar with a naked lady in their lap. And that's while on duty. And we've had a lot of issues. We got past those. But now you're wanting to change it and go backwards. And I would encourage you to give that a very hard, serious thought and make sure that it's truly the direction you want to go. Without using the board, you're going to have everything that's going to be handled by one person or so. And you're going to have nepotism and favoritism. It's going to be random. This, at least by having the board, and somebody's nephew may want to be a cop in Hortonville. And he may interview wonderfully and wind up becoming one. But at least he will go through that extra step. Okay. You also, I noticed by this ordinance that you are assuming all responsibility with letting go of the police commission. You're assuming all the responsibility. Mr. Johnson can explain that to you probably a lot better than I can. But there is, if you hire a bad cop, and he goes out here and he's not experienced enough or has not had all the training he needs, he comes back on the village. And he'll come back on the village in probably 6 figures. So, this is all things you need to keep in mind. There's a lot more to this than just, well, we don't need them guys anymore, or we don't want to have to deal with them anymore, or whatever other reason you're getting. The good old boy network isn't what we need today. We had it in the past, and we had all the trouble that went with it. With that, I have nothing more to add. I just want you to think about it. I personally would ask that you don't pass this ordinance. The other reason I would ask you that is that if you pass this ordinance and a year down the line, you have another major issue. Because this board was founded based on a major issue. You have another major issue. You can't just call up board and say we need you again. You have an ordinance disposing of it. You're going to have to go back through the process of reinstating it. Now, I would quickly answer any questions if there's any, and then I'll sit down and shut up. Oh, by the way, I don't make a cent out of this.
Thank you for your time, Martin, but this is not a place for discussion back and forth.
I was just offering, because I am through with my time.
Thank you.
Do you have anything you want?
Tom Baker is on the list.
I just want to say that I've only been on this committee for a short time, and the guys that are on it, I feel that we worked hard and we tried hard to do the right thing for this village. And then to, we were given a task to get candidates to the village, to the board here, and we did that in a very, very timely manner. We were accused in the last meeting of it taking us too much time to do our job. That was definitely not the case. We met on a timely basis once we got the orders from the board or from the administrator, and we took all the applications, processed them in a very, very timely manner, and did what we needed to do. Why we still don't have a police chief is really not any problem with the operations that we did. We did all of ours in a timely manner, and once again, what Martin just brought up is, the last time we were here, we seen that 3 people were calling the shots and then let you guys know what was going on later. And I don't think that's the way this board is supposed to work. I would ask you to please consider continuing the job that we do, and we'll do it to the best of our ability. Thank you.
And that's it.
We have no unfinished business, so we'll move, committee reports, library board.
We finally are announcing our new director. It's actually an internal hire, Allie Kraus, who's been with us for roughly a year, I think. Allie joins us and made an announcement to the staff last Friday, and so far, things have been going quite well. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions or comments for Julie? Hearing none, we'll move on to zoning board of appeals.
The board met Tuesday night, and it was for a variance request from the school district for a sign for their scoreboard. With all the upgrades to Aiken Field, the scoreboard would not meet the requirements for within the zoning district because it's in a residential school or residential zoning district with an 8 square foot maximum size for a sign. So the variance was granted, and the staff report included a recommendation from the staff that the village explore a new zoning district of institutional or something similar to rezone schools and churches and the like into that district because it just no longer fits in a residential. So it's been, as I said, it was approved by the zoning board of appeals, and with the conditions that it meet all other requirements.
Any questions or comments for Diane? Hearing none, we'll move on to urban forestry board.
Yeah, we met last Thursday. Some of the topics were choosing a date for the 2018 Arbor Day. We chose May 12th, but instead of making it strictly an Arbor Day event, we're going to try to bring in people from all over the community. We're going to call it branching out to our community. Anyways, it's going to involve events beyond planting trees. It's going to be like a spring celebration, but it'll still count towards our Tree City certification and all that good stuff. We discussed grant opportunities, and we also discussed nature trail improvements that we're going to be doing out back this year. So, and also landscaping options for Alonzo Park. I don't know if anybody noticed towards late summer last year that the main trees out front died, and we're going to have to take those down. And while we're doing that, we might as well reconfigure the front. I'm going to talk to the Lions Club, see if they'll recondition their big sign they have out front, and we want to get all that stuff organized, get some bigger, newer trees in there. So it's a lot of work to be done. That's all I really have.
Any questions or comments for Carl? Hearing none, now we'll move on to new business, as there's no unfinished business. East Side Water and Sewer Serviceability Feasibility Study. McMahon estimated at $5,200.
This is one step in a process for determining the feasibility for potentially running water and sewer utilities up to the eastern roundabout. We have to know if it's feasible before we can even start investing any time and effort into it. McMahon will be doing that for us. It's not necessarily Ron, but Amy Bachler will be doing it for us.
And we have to check into it, but we believe a portion of it, of the study, as I said, I had to check into this, but we think that it might be covered by the TID 3, because the TID projects are allowed up to a half mile from the TID boundaries, and about half of the project is in that half-mile radius, but I still have to check into that.
Yeah. So again, we're looking to approve this. As you know, that dealership is really interested in getting on village water and sewer. I think the future certainly for the village of Hortonville revolves around expanding our retail corridor. I wasn't expecting it to jump this fast, but if we have the opportunity to go out that way with utilities, I think we'd be remiss not doing it.
And it
In the
is,
long run.
and well, like Carl said, it's that we weren't expecting it this fast, but we had it as part of the TID plan. We identified this potential as occurring sometime around 2022. So it was something that we had planned for with the TID and anticipated, so it's just moving up the timeline.
So what portion of these costs are paid by TID 3,
That's something that,
percentage-wise?
that's something that I still have to look into. I believe that this study, that 50% of it about approximately could be covered by the TID. I just have to make sure that a feasibility study is an allowable expense with the TID.
So that includes all the construction costs too?
That part I did already check with, is that the actual installation of sewer and water, whatever portion of it is within that half-mile radius from the TID boundary, which we estimate at about half, that is chargeable to the TID.
Do we have money in the budget for what's not going to be covered by TID?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the same. Even the, I'm not gonna stretch out there too far, but we're hoping it's feasible without any loans or anything against the current rate structure, to even getting it out there, the whole thing.
Okay.
That's a possibility, yeah.
So you're looking for a motion tonight?
Yes.
Yeah, for this agreement, yeah.
Okay.
We have to start somewhere, and this is the start, so.
You have the agreement draft?
It is,
It was part of the packet.
I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
Email.
Are
sorry.
you okay with it, Bob?
Yes.
All right, I'll make the motion, I don't have it here, but I'll make the motion to approve the proposal by McMahon and Associates to do the East Side Water and Sewer Serviceability Feasibility Study in the amount of $5,200.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved.
It's definitely in our best interest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Who was the second? I was busy.
That was me.
Thank you.
We actually got O-2-18, ordinance to delete section 1.30, Police and Fire Commission.
And I would, just one thing, I would have you make sure that you are looking at the copy of it that I put at your place tonight, because there was a typo.
Okay, excellent. I'll take this out.
Okay.
Yeah, this was discussed earlier. I guess the only change that maybe from my position is the timing, but I understand that we're at a point where we need to make some full-time and part-time hires at this point. And it seems to me to be a perfect time to make the transition. There's nothing happening at the commission level at this point in time, and it just seems like a perfect time to do it.
You know, that was Mr. Baker
Yeah.
that gave the dissertation.
He was the second one, yes.
Oh, who was the first
No.
one?
Baker.
Oh, Baker. Okay.
Yeah.
So Baker was the first one. I'm a little concerned about some of the liabilities this board may take on because of this.
Well, we'd have liability either way.
I was going to say.
So, yeah, but so the police commission is a part of the village, and so if the police commission does something wrong, we have liability. And if we do something wrong, we have liability. I think it's a mutual issue.
So we take on the
From a medical standpoint.
Okay, so we take on the responsibility of all the hires and fires?
Well,
No, I
I would think that hires could be done within the department as far as the underlings.
With our approval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It would
Okay.
Right.
it would go through the personnel policy, which says department heads hire within their group.
Yeah, I guess I just don't want to end up
No, and as far as...
loading ourselves with more responsibility.
No, and as I, you know, we haven't decided yet, but I mean, we should give it further discussion. I, for one, think there's merit to having a hearing examiner in the future. If we, you know, have a professional who knows all the law, you don't have to bring them up to speed. It's quicker, it's cheaper. You won't have, the hearings won't be as extended if we do have them, so they won't be as costly.
Right.
So there, you know, there's arguments always to be made for both sides, but I really believe this is...
So
Right,
you
we have
have,
involvement right now in the hiring process of police officers right now, right? It hasn't changed since...
No, the only change that would occur is that, you know, the final decision would now be made by, whether it's the chief of police and the, you know, the sergeants, or the administrator, chief of police and sergeants, versus the PFC. So typically we do a testing period, you know, first round of interviews with the full-time officers, and then they select, you know, a few candidates to come through to that final layer of the interviews.
So they just do the initial look at the applications, right?
Who's that?
The police commission, they just look at that initial group of applications, or do they actually do the interview?
They did that for the police chief position. They looked at the candidates, but for hiring of officers on the, like, patrol officers, we do all of that ourselves. We just make a recommendation. We give them candidates to interview for the last phase of the process.
Right, so are all the police officers involved with that? I can't remember for exactly how it went when I was on there, but
Yep.
I know most of you guys were involved in that, so
Yes.
It's a full-time officer.
Yeah, the full-time officers do the first layer of interviews, and then they send through, you know, usually about 5 candidates or so to be interviewed by the chief of police, myself, and the police commission. And if we didn't have a commission, it would be that they would go through to the chief of police, myself, possibly administrator.
Yeah, at this time, without a chief, Diane would definitely
Right.
be there, because you don't have the authority that chief does.
as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but as I recall, when I was on there, we would give you a list of 1 through 5, so we meet like one time a year, and give you a list of 1 through 5, and you'd go right down that list, from 1 all the way down to 5 if you needed to.
Yep.
It could be another year by the time they'd meet again.
Yeah, so like, as an example of this process, we will, you know, say we select, the full-timers will select 5 candidates, and then the PFC will interview those 5 candidates, they'll do their ranking process, and then we follow that eligibility list, you know,
Or
so.
it could be like when I was on there, and I was only on there less than a year, and we met 3 times for interviews.
My concern is what we talked about 2 weeks ago, or whenever it was, I can't remember exact date. We all agreed that after we had a police chief in position, then we look at this again in 6 months down the road. Why are we pushing it like right now, all of a sudden?
And what if the chief wants to keep the police and fire?
I don't think it's police...
yeah, I don't think it's up to him, is it?
It's up to the board.
It's our decision.
It's the board, we run this village, remember, and we run, yeah. I mean, I just,
You know, economically, as Bob pointed out, I think it's in our best interest to dissolve this commission, because we wouldn't have those fees going forward if we had any issues. So in that respect, I think it would be to our best interest.
And Jack,
And so, whoops,
no,
sorry.
I thought that's what we had talked about, and then I had made that comment about waiting, and then Bob had clarified, said, no, we'll just, once we get the police chief hired, we'll put this in front of us and we'll do it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I asked that question, and we were both thinking the same like 6 months, but now
If we
we're...
do this now, the new chief coming on it wouldn't be an issue. It would be dissolved.
Right.
And, you know, we wouldn't have this issue. So I think your intent is to move this forward ASAP?
Yeah, I changed my mind. I guess I said before, you know, I thought timing wasn't as critical, but I think we're at that point with where we are with the chief, and then with the regular hire. I mean, you know, it's kind of hard to be part in, right? So if you have this eligibility list, whatever the extent of their involvement is, right now is a good time to transfer control in this commission.
Do we have applicants right now for police officers?
Yes. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Brian.
Sure.
But what's your feeling about losing the police commission?
You know, it really, in my world, it just changes that end piece to the hiring process. And one of the things that I wanted to add, Jack, is, you know, there are times where we would only meet once a year, and we had a list that was established, and, you know, we'd use up that list, and it would be, like I said, once a year we'd meet. What we're finding is a bit more challenging in our world is that when we go back to that list 3 months later, they're all hired somewhere now. So we're meeting more frequently to establish a new list. But, you know, as far as whether we have them or abolish them, it doesn't change a whole lot in our world other than that ending piece of the hiring process. We would just change that. So.
But you guys still, at the end of the day, you're recommending the commission, this is the guy we want.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we give them our recommendations, yes.
Is it more of a formality? Or are they actually giving input at that point?
Because we have the police commission, it's definitely a formality. I mean, we have to follow that. They make the final decision, but we've always had chief of police, myself, sit in with the police commission, so, you know, there's discussions about, you know, who we're recommending and what we like about them.
I have one question probably for you, Bob. If somebody does have a complaint, who do they go to now if we change this whole thing? Before, people made the complaint to the police and fire, is that correct?
Well, I mean, formal disciplinary,
Well, say,
any
Is that
complaint's going to go
any
through the
complaint?
department. Yeah.
Right.
say you're complaining about an officer,
Well, that would
then
always
who do you go to?
That would always go to the department head. The commission comes in when we have a disciplinary issue.
And then where does that go from there?
Now,
Before the police and fire took care of it.
with police
now
and
who
fire,
takes care
now
of it?
that same process goes through. If there's a complaint with an officer, it goes through department head, it goes through the chief. That's the first step with an officer.
Right, right. It's with the chief then, if there's a discipline against the chief, then that has to go there.
Then we
Obviously,
be
so
responsible? Is that what this
No.
ordinance is saying?
Well, the village is always responsible, I'm not, what do you mean?
This is where the hearing examiner, I mean, if it...
That's where we would
So
appoint,
that-
we could appoint a hearing examiner. You guys don't have to hear it. You would simply appoint a hearing examiner.
And that's,
So the village is...
that's all clarified in here,
Yeah.
you're saying?
No, we have not decided that within this yet. You know, if we had a disciplinary issue, do we want to go with the hearing examiner? You can make that decision at the time, quite frankly. You wouldn't have to, yes.
Right, no, we talked about that. We
Yeah.
talked about the fact that if there was an
Yeah.
issue, then we would meet and decide what we wanted to do with it.
Or you can have a separate
Yeah.
committee, you
Right.
mentioned of three.
You could set up, you can have a committee of three to hear the issue, but, you know, I guess I would, I'd like to address it.
the purpose if we do
Oh, right, I'd like to, right, I would like to address it earlier, and, you know, if you all agree, decide that we will use a hearing examiner, maybe we create, public safety, we could make a recommendation, maybe a list of hearing examiners and have that in place if and when something comes up.
Three residents on a committee might provide a biased opinion too.
Well,
So if we had an outside,
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. I think, you know, we're getting bigger, but one of the problems we have is that we're fairly small yet, and everybody knows everybody, and it's extremely difficult. You know, I don't think I'd want to be on the commission.
I wouldn't either.
Right? So, I mean, it's putting everybody in a difficult position.
I don't mean to throw a wrench into this, but would it make sense to put into the ordinance the fact that we would go to a hearing commissioner?
If
I
you,
thought that's what we
if
talked
you,
about.
yeah, so if you want to make that part of this, I guess I'd ask that you pass this, but with that amendment, and I will.
this is just
present-
dissolution here.
Yes, but I will, the next meeting, I will have that in front of you, Kelly.
With that being said, I'll make the motion. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Do you have any other discussion?
No, I like having, if Putting something in place sooner than later, I think would be.
Yeah, separate from this.
Where are we at with making the offer to the chief, or possible chief?
Yeah, and I have that as part of my report. It's the, I don't, can I get into that now as part of this agenda?
Part of the agenda,
Or
it's
can
going to
I-
be part of your report.
Yeah,
But
it's going to be
Yeah.
part
But
of
then
it.
we'll just, if it's okay with the chair, you can just move the agenda around. I mean, it's,
I don't have a problem, I just want to make sure that we're all.
Because, like I said, our last conversation, we said we weren't doing nothing until we had this all in place, because we didn't want to go through this again.
We may,
The timing to me is,
We're getting a little out of line here, I think. I'd like to make the motion to approve this ordinance. First, this discussion about the chief comes later. And again, this is just dissolution. Really, am I correct in saying that?
yes.
Okay. So with that in mind, I'm going to make a motion to approve ordinance O-2-18, which will delete section 1.30 from the village code of ordinances regarding the police and fire commissioners of the village.
I'll second that.
Let's have a roll call.
Nay.
Aye.
nay.
Aye.
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 Pass on a 5-2 vote. Moving on, we got clerk treasurer's position. Do you want
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, that's,
to go with this, Diane?
yep, excuse me. As you know, Lynn submitted her 90-day notice. Thank you for the extended notice, the beyond what we were technically required.
Yes.
For retirement, in May, is that correct, Lynn?
May 4th.
May 4th. In anticipation of that, I reached out to Phil Costin with Ellers, who is our municipal financial advisor, to ask for what kind of services they provide, because in kind of thinking about this, the thought is that we have a possibility that we could do an internal promotion. However, we need to make sure that the capability is there, and to get a full grasp on the roles. And I think this is a very good time to bring in someone like Ellers. One, because anytime you have a transition, I think that's a good time to review practices and so forth. And so what they do is they do offer they could come in for a while when Lynn is still here, maybe a day, maybe 2 days a week type thing, and then provide transitionary services, potentially, review and see if the candidate, the internal is able to do it, and can also do transition, both actual work of the different roles, and also training and mentoring of the next next person to fill that role. So they do provide those services, and the person that they're looking at potentially doing that is actually a former auditor, and in one capacity, and was also a municipal finance director. So I think now would be a good time to do it, one, because obviously of the transition, but then also budgetarily, we could swing this, because we're going to have some time where, we've got a vacancy, either it be with the person that may transition into this role, or if that doesn't happen, in Lynn's role. So we could swing it financially, and I just think it's a good thing to have somebody outsider come in and check us out.
So Diane, this would be someone coming in before we would have Lynn's replacement?
Yes, and before Lynn leaves, to work with Lynn so
No,
that...
I understood that.
Yep.
But so somebody's going to come in before Lynn leaves to figure out what Lynn does? I'm just trying to...
Why would we employ somebody from the outside to do that when we would have this candidate work side by side with her for a month or so prior to
Well,
her leaving?
it's also, not saying anything against Lynn, because she's done a fantastic job, but it's also, is there anything new that may throw her for a loop if it was instituted for her, but not for somebody new coming in that would be more efficient?
They're talking about having somebody look at the procedures and see if there's something
Yeah,
that can
they're-
be changed out.
And I'm not
And they would all,
that would be a bad thing, but would it be,
When you do that.
it would seem to make more sense to me if we had Lynn's replacement here at the time, when that if that took place.
Well, I guess
that's what the person that is internal could also be looked at that time to make sure that they would be capable of taking on the dual role.
I think it would be helpful.
One of them, they're
Sorry.
quite capable of, it's the other one that Ellers would be looking at to see would they be able to transition well into that position before we actually get there.
See, we know the capabilities on the clerk part of it, the clerk's roles. We don't right now, she would need some work on the treasurer's roles. And I don't think we have enough knowledge and experience in the treasurer's roles to make that call. And that's where I think it would be helpful to have an outside consultant saying, you got a good candidate here, and she could fill these roles.
And what if she doesn't?
Yeah.
And then we would go outside.
Okay,
And that's what I want to make sure, is that whatever we do, we're doing it not just out of ease, but that this person is truly the correct one.
I think we need to establish educational requirements. First of all, I would anticipate, as I've said before, I think this person should have an accounting degree of some sort.
And that's what our auditors have always said.
Okay.
Well, then, I mean, and I'm not
Does this person have-
disputing it, but however, what I'm saying is that, are you going to put the money towards it? Because right now, I mean, frankly, with the salary of it, you're not going to get somebody with an accounting degree. I think that's going to be difficult.
One of the things that the auditors have always said with that as well is that they find that there are almost no smaller municipalities that can afford anybody with an accounting degree.
Well, you
It's
know-
a good idea that it almost never works out.
Yeah, I think we need to go down that road, though.
No, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah. And I think previous auditors had pointed out that we should have somebody with those educational background in
You have to read
place.
the entire paragraph though, because that's not all they say.
Right.
Well, so let me ask you this. Does this candidate internally have a degree? Well, there you go. So,
And most of the clerks, like Lynn said, in these small communities don't.
The only time you're going to get somebody with an accounting degree is if you move into a larger community.
well,
So
you
can
know,
you split the
let's-
job?
Hmm?
So you split the job?
That's going to be even more costly, frankly, because then you've got, I mean, we have a hard time getting candidates for single jobs. If you have two low-paying jobs and are paying benefits for them both, we're going to have
Nobody's going to come
difficulty
in with an
getting
accounting degree
candidates.
for the money we can pay. Not unless they're looking to have that going into the sunset.
How long would others take to decide whether or not this person was going to be able to handle it or not?
I mean, I don't have that. And that's the reason why I'm suggesting that we deal with Ellers is because it keeps us from being in a big rush. I mean, I just don't think that we want to do that in a rush and not take the time and it to really get the right person or.
They give them a call.
Not at this point, and that's why at this point, I'm still working with them, and they're talking to their person and looking at some kind of proposal on what that would look like. It's just, we just got the, Lynn's notice 2 weeks, and I was asked to present on this. I mean, I don't have all the answers at this point, but this is something that I think we could explore, and it would prevent us from having to hurry up and get somebody in there.
Would it make, I'm sorry, Peter.
Go ahead.
Would it make sense to bring somebody in, are you, let me back it up for a second. Are you suggesting that we bring somebody in from Ellers and then concurrently have the go out and look for a candidate at the same time while we have somebody here from Ellers?
Yeah, or we could even before, I mean, before Ellers comes in, work on a candidate and have them be part and assist us in that process.
I mean, it would make sense to me, the sooner we get
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to waste a lot of
something
time.
out on the street saying we're looking for.
Well, and the reason why I haven't yet pushed that is because I know that there was the discussion on, splitting it, not splitting it, and personally, I think that's going to be very difficult if we split it, because I think, like I said, we have a hard time getting.
We can't afford one, hardly.
Right, but I didn't, we've thrown that idea around in the past.
Any accounting firm that we bring in,
It depends on how much
Ellers
that person is. If if it's
included, it's gonna cost us $100
If
an
it's zero
hour plus.
experience, of course not. They have 30 years experience.
So if you bring somebody in for 6 hours a day, there's a $600 bill. How long would this last? 3, 4, 5 weeks? And if this person you're talking about internally doesn't pan out, then we're back to square one. So Ellery stays here and we bring somebody else in, we have to go through a process. I don't know.
I guess
I find that just a little bit too costly.
I guess I'd like to see us get at least the,
I'd like to
At
post
least
it.
the ad in the paper.
yes,
I mean,
I'd like to see.
I think we need to post it. We need to find out,
I mean, we can look at the
we
person
need
inside.
to come up with some
Yeah,
basic educational,
Yeah.
just like we did for,
Preferences, we would prefer this, but maybe we're not gonna get it. And then while we get that posting out, Diane can still talk to Ellers and see what they do offer and get a little bit more, a little bit more information for us to see really what our, what our costs and what our options are there. But I really think that it would be, I think it would behoove us to get it posted sooner than later. Is that,
Well, and I just want to, that's fine, I just want to make sure that I am posting for the clerk treasurer, because that's something I just didn't want to get out there right now, because I know that there's been back and forth discussion on that, so I will post for a clerk treasurer position.
so what background, what educational, are we talking,
I'd say clerk
Certified.
certification,
Certification.
and, I mean, if maybe, accounting degree preferred.
right.
and experience probably what,
Minimum
3, 5 years?
I would say, at least.
Minimum of 3?
3 to 5, yeah.
Some communities, this is an elected position.
I know that, it used to be elected.
That's scary.
There's very few left that are, I think.
That's frightening.
Ours used to be.
Yeah, because every 2 years, you're
Getting new.
dealing with somebody else, quite possibly.
Yeah, that'd be a pain, yes.
And we've had 33 years of,
Well, actually 18 to 19 of me as clerk treasurer.
okay, I'm sorry, let me back that up.
And then 32 and a half as employee, so.
Good run.
Yeah, it's been a good run.
But there is so much to the job. I mean,
I know.
both positions that, I'd like to see Diane stay in touch with Ellers.
Oh, I was not suggesting.
3 months isn't that far, and if we run out of time here, we may need them to
Back us up.
bridge.
Yeah.
Just to bridge.
In the next meeting.
Right.
Maybe we'll know
Carl's
more
meeting.
information from Ellen.
Yeah, I'll post this and I'll keep in touch with you. I mean, like I said, this is all, let's meet. All right, I will post the position as clerk treasurer with qualifications including certification as clerk, an accounting degree preferred, and 3 to 5 years experience.
Are we putting that in salary range?
I would really like to, because I just think we're wasting our time and a lot of other people's time when we don't.
I mean, you might as well.
You have to.
So then the question is, I mean, do I post it at what Lynn's current, a range, or?
I would, this is only a suggestion, we can do whatever we want, but I would go where Lynn's current is and take 10 off of it and say, here's the range.
10 off?
What do you think?
So for practical purposes, if she's at 150,000?
Yeah, practical purposes.
Maybe you can stay on now.
All right, I will post
No, I would just, I wouldn't go 10 down, I think I'd go 5. I don't want to just dissuade him from,
Okay.
applying.
Okay.
So again, back to, if it's 60, make it 55 to 60.
No, it's not 60.
I know it's not. I just didn't want to throw that out there.
Lynn, what is it?
That's your business, not ours.
It's about 55 and a half.
Oh, it is?
All right.
Okay.
And then I suggest that we do what we have been for hiring is the compensation package so that our costs of health insurance are predictable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right, I will get that, work on that.
Thank you, Diane.
Anything else on this? Hearing none, we'll move on to any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion.
We need to schedule a planning and zoning commission meeting. We've got two CSMs, and since we haven't had a meeting for a while because we haven't had anything that needed approval. So now that we do, then I'm going to bring the downtown zoning code back to the planning and zoning commission, since we have to have a meeting anyway.
Anything else for future discussion?
Just what we were talking about before with, after the event, what Bob was talking about, after eliminating the police and fire commission, having something
Yes.
put in place that gives us,
Like a hearing commissioner or
Yes,
something.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
Anything else? Hearing none, we'll move on to report of village officials. Administrator.
Okay, I know I got a lot, so I'm gonna talk fast, so I don't want Peter giving me the stink eye. February 21st at 12:30, we are working on a press conference about Highway 15. We're going to have it in front of MidCon, because we want to highlight the issues of getting in and out an industrial business right on 15. Right now, I've got MidCon committed, All World Ford is not sure yet, East Village Retail Center, the Vice President of the Fox Cities Chamber, and the Allegheny County Executive. So 12:30, Park at Alonzo, and the actual press conference will be at MidCon. I'm still finalizing that. Once we get the notice, I'll get it all out to you, the official notice.
12:30, what date?
February 21st.
Question for you, Fox Cities Chamber?
Yes, the big one, not the Fox
Okay.
Cities West, but the Fox Cities Chamber. Their vice president is the policy person as well.
Got
So
it.
I asked him to speak on, and they're the ones that are going to speak. I'll invite our surrounding communities, but we really want this one to be about the business part of it, the economics of the Highway 15 issue. When we had all the municipalities there and the municipalities speaking, it was about safety. So I'm going to invite the other municipalities, but really have it be highlighting economic development and how this impacts the business industry. So Fox Cities Chamber, I'm asking him to reach out to, Oshkosh Corporation, Bemis, where Jeff Shue works, Gulfstream, those places, because they're major employers and a lot of their employees are using this to come in on. So I'm trying to really make it be economic and workforce development. Number 2, East Central RPC Technical Assistance Projects. We have been approved for the recreation visitor cartoon map development. It's just to show a map that we want to put on our kiosk to show the whole, kind of beyond just the village trail. And then also the East Village Mixed Use TID Concept Plan. I asked them to do this to kind of put together a concept of what this TID over here could look like with development, because I think it'll be easier to try to get that development to actually happen if they can see what, if they can visualize it. The police chief hiring, the background investigation is underway. I clarified the working chief patrol versus and patrol expectations, because one of the items in the discussion, the proposal, made it a little unclear. I wasn't sure if he had that understanding of what that is. So we clarified it, and we are on the same page. The other parts of it, I haven't discussed further with him at this point yet, pending while the background investigation is underway.
So the car and the phone and all that stuff is,
I don't think that's as big of a
that's
deal.
an issue.
To me, the one that was a make it or break it was that part about, because there was some wording in there that said generally available.
Right.
And we needed to clarify that physically here during those hours. So I wanted to make sure that he fully understood what we meant. So we're, and I got it in writing, and so we're on the same page.
on the vacation issue.
In that one, I haven't on the other ones, because to me, this one was the make or break.
Okay.
The other ones, I think we can just,
Yeah,
work on
because he
from
said
there.
they weren't.
Yeah. So that's where we are with that. Annexation, we had talked about with Ron, with that, the East Village limits sewer and water. As part of that, we would be doing an annexation, because we would certainly not want to put sewer and water to service properties in another tax district that we would get no benefit from. I have met with some of the owners. One is very interested and owns substantial acreage out there. Others are contemplating and meeting with other family members who have property out there. I still need to meet with a lot of them. It's just, I prefer to do it, try to one-on-one, and it's kind of trying to do this timing appropriately, is that we can't, we can't do the whole horse in the cart. Everything's got to kind of be pushing forward at the same time. I did meet with Bob's partners with the Menn Law Firm, who have experience in annexation, and they're doing some background work on it as well. And ultimately what we're looking for is there's really two ways that we want to do this annexation, two processes. One is the unanimous, where everybody in the area is, and that's the easiest, but I think that's going to be unlikely. The other one is owners of 1/2 of the land area or 1/2 of the real property in assessed value. I think that's likely, but that's something that we got to still work through. So we're working on it. It's just a lot of things happening at once and moving forward at the same time. Pending legislation, this is where I know there's a lot of them. It's just that a lot of them have direct effect on the village. The developers bill, Assembly Bill 770, this limits municipal powers to regulate development and charge fees, and these are some of the big ones that I highlighted here. There's a lot more in it, but these are the ones that are big. One of them is if developers, it gives us less control and less recourse if developers don't meet their commitments on the installation of public utilities, specifically stormwater. So this really diminishes our power on that, and we could be stuck. This is a big one too. It requires municipalities to accept land dedication for parks in lieu of park fees. So if they, and this is such a big issue because one, if we already have enough parks, now they're sticking us with more property and we have to accept it. And, so then there's ongoing maintenance costs and all this stuff. And whereas when you do park fees, you can use that in order to continue the current rec program. So, we've seen it before where you take the most fallow, unbuildable chunk of land in your subdivision and say, I'm going to give this to the village, and now they're forcing us to take it, not only within the subdivision, but it could even be outside of the subdivision if it's adjacent, and this forces us to take it. Prohibits municipalities from regulating construction work on weekends. The status of this is that it has passed the assembly on Tuesday, and now it's in the Senate. We'll know Friday if the Senate's going to take it up during this now. So it's moving in, and I have the link there where you can voice your opposition. It's an email that's already prepared, and I sent it in, and it'll send it to, based on your address, it'll send it to your senator. So this is something that I think we might, we should consider doing a letter in opposition as well as a board. But this is a big one. This seems like this is where the trend is going. B is the wheel tax legislation. The proposed legislation, it would require municipalities that implement or implemented a wheel tax to do it by referendum. And even those that are currently have a wheel tax, it would require a referendum to keep it. And the argument against it is that in the last decade, it's been over a decade since the gas tax has gone up. So we're really, we've got the levy caps, and we're getting less revenue for transportation. Transportation aids are below 2011 levels. And it's making us have an increased necessity to do alternative revenue streams, but they keep taking that away from us too, because if it's not off the tax roll, we can't take it off, fire protection, some of these other ones. So, I know that's something that the village is not in the process of right now, but it is something we talked about, and it's just one of those where they're taking away another tool. So if you're going to take away the wheel tax tool, then give us more money.
I thought the governor was talking about a gas tax increase. That's what no?
No, the president.
Say that?
At today's headlines, it was the president.
I thought the governor talked about a gas increase if they found...
If they found
a
way to offset it.
Right, an offset. He said he'd go for it if they found a way to offset it.
Right, so it doesn't get us anywhere.
Right.
So there was discussion on it.
Yeah.
And the resulting of this is that, we're seeing it everywhere, is there's more and more communities are delaying road maintenance. And actually, the county that I came from, when I left Lincoln County, they were talking about, it was so bad that they may have to revert county highways to gravel because they just can't pave it anymore. So that's, right now, it looks like, I believe that one is not going to happen this year, so it's still a tool. They think it'll still be a tool for us with this session, but it's just always coming up. So we think that it'll come around and they'll try to take that tool away in future years. The big one that we were concerned about before was the state loans to municipalities. It looks like it's safe for this year. That's probably not going to make it out of committee, but it's probably not gone. But this year we're safe.
So that's another one where they passed it in one house, but it will probably not make it through the second one this time.
Dark store, this is one that has been going on for years, and I know it doesn't affect us now, but it could in the future. It's a tax loophole that's a result of a Supreme Court decision, and it reduces chain and big box retailers' tax assessment by like 50%. So, the sale could be $5 million, but they're only assessing it for $2.5 million. It really shifts the burden of taxes onto residential. And interestingly, I just found out that in Wisconsin, the residential property taxes make up over 60% of property taxes. In Minnesota, it's less than 50. So in Wisconsin, the burden is very much on property, on residential, whereas in other states, it's business. So, and it just keeps shifting that way more and more. So that currently is in place, that happens, and so the bill that was introduced was to close that loophole so that could keep on happening, and that is dead. It's not going to make it, so the dark store legislation thing is still out there. That loophole is still out there.
But they did have a lot of sponsors for this bill. There were a lot of people that were on board with it. There were close to 50 or more in the House and the Senate. So this was not something where there were just a couple of people pushing it, but the people who were in charge of getting it out of committee said nothing.
So from the time EDC company closes its doors, turns the lights off, and while that property is up for sale, the assessment drops by 50%?
No, while it's operating,
It's open.
they treat it like it is closed.
So
That's not a dark store.
No, their argument is that why should we be taxed more on our building than the one that's dark?
Vacant
Because the building is a
down the
building.
street.
Yeah.
And if you're taxing this more, you're actually taxing this on our profitability or the goodwill. But, so all of these large stores that require a lot of services, right? They're just all using this to knock down their assessments, and everybody else is picking up the cost. Or we go without services.
So the League of Municipalities is going to, keep lobbying on this one, and it will bring it back. It's been in place since 2008. They're going to keep bringing it back until something gets done, but this year it didn't make it.
The dark store is a little misleading.
Right, it's because they're assessed the way they are as if they would be a dark store.
I understand that.
Yeah. So, and then one I didn't have listed specifically on here that just came to mind isn't so much legislation, but if you recall last board meeting, we talked about a business in our industrial park that we were notified by the state that they dropped the assessment of the personal property by $800,000, and that means $18,000 in taxes. At the seminar that I was at last week, there was some discussion about that at one of the sessions, and there are multiple communities. This is happening throughout the state. One community in particular, right after their TIG closed, they lost $6 million in assessment. And so I notified the league that we're one of them too, and they are going to be reaching out to all the community, or as many of the communities that they're aware of where this happened to, and see about doing some kind of advocacy on that, because it's running rampant. And actually, out of all of the municipalities that talked about it at the session, we got hit the least with $800,000 being reduced. They were in the millions. And
As
the
it
one,
stands now.
the one where I said it was 6 million, that was, where did I say that was, Bob? Like Manawa?
Yeah, it was small.
A small community, and,
I think you did say it was minimal.
yeah, $6 million. And I don't know yet how it's going to affect us. I mean, ours wasn't that big of a hit, but, so. And then lastly, I just wanted to say, we got the tests for the wastewater treatment plants, and that we were fully within the range for BOD, total phosphorus, and total suspended solids, so great
Those are,
job, Ryan.
Yeah, those are laboratory proficiency testing,
Yep.
blind testing that we're requiring. So he did a good job, as usual.
There was a lot of stuff.
It was.
Thank
You
you.
covered it well.
So, but I'm almost done, is just make sure that you go on to that site, that it's really easy to do it, and try to get as many people to, because that developer's bill is just a suck to municipalities. And residential.
Any questions or comments for Diane? Hearing none, we'll move on to Director of, Clerk Treasurer.
I'm not gone yet. Just wanted to remind everybody, I know I said something to somebody today, and they were very surprised to hear that there was an election next week, but we do have an election on Tuesday. It's not a really big one. I was trying not to go there. There's only one item on the ballot, and we are going to be narrowing the candidates for Wisconsin Supreme Court from 3 candidates down to 2, but it is something that does have quite an effect on Wisconsin, so if you can go out and find information on the candidates, that'd be a good thing, and we're going to be here on Tuesday.
That's the only issue. We're voting.
That is the only thing on the Village of Hortonville
Still
ballot.
important to come and vote.
Yeah.
Say what?
Still important to come and vote.
I totally agree.
That's it? That's it? Okay. Any questions or comments for Lynn? Now we'll go to the Director of Public Works.
You should have in front of you the technical memorandum from McMahon regarding a review of our rate structure for the wastewater side of our utility. We're kind of standing pat. They certainly want us to keep an eye on revenues, make sure we're still, there may be a chance that we could have to raise rates in the future, but I think we reviewed 2017 sales, and we actually had $976,000 in revenue, a little bit higher than we projected for 18, and I anticipate the same next year. I think as long as we're earning some money in the wastewater utility, that we should just stand pat as far as raising rates. I don't think we want to go there. I don't think any of us want to go there.
Didn't we just have last year a very minute, very slight decrease in the water?
No, I don't believe so. No,
Not in rates?
No.
Did they stay the same? Okay.
They've been the same since the first quarter of 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, we're obligated by the DNR to do a sewer user charge review every 2 years. It's just confirmation of kind of what we knew. We're not making a lot, but we are making some. And given the fact that our rates are one of the highest in the valley, that I think we're just going to keep an eye on it and stand pat.
And try to get more bigger users.
Yeah, and again, grow the system, that's about our only hope. As you see, I passed out a memo to it, kind of touches on that. I also talk about the system improvement fund. That's, I wouldn't say an imaginary fund, but it's a part of our overall bank account where we set aside monies and revenues. Some of it is used for annual projects, like I've been doing every year. The majority of it is placed away in our fund balance. Again, that's an audit figure that we'll get every May of every year once the auditors get through looking at our books. 2017 was an expensive year with all the work we had done, but I think we'll be in fine shape for a while. I don't see any need to raise rates. Again, our expenses are less than our revenue, so we just have to control our spending and watch what we do and try to grow the community and the system. Are there any questions regarding that fire truck?
Thank you, Tom.
It's nice and colorful.
I'm colorblind.
Anything else?
On expenses, the money we set aside in debt depreciation is considered an expense even though it's going into the bank account. So that's kind of why it looks like we're only earning 2%. So that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for Carl? Hearing none, police department?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to mention, as was mentioned earlier, we're in the midst of a hiring process. We just tested 20-ish candidates on Monday night, written testing. We'll be doing interviews with them early, the full-timers will be doing interviews with them early next week. We're looking to fill the position of Officer Ross, who I mentioned back in January, resigned. And then we just had a part-time officer, most recent hire, who was hired in January, was offered a full-time position as well at the Sheriff's Department. So we're currently down the full-time and the part-time as of the 18th. So
We have a revolving door.
well, I will tell you that this is a big problem right now for all. There's a lot of positions available right now in our field, and so, we had a very good applicant pool, just go around, and really, to my surprise, more applicants than what I've been hearing from other area agencies, so that's very positive. We got some really good candidates, so.
But even then, I know we had the one that we got the applicant, and then they contacted us and withdrew it because they got picked up by Allegheny County.
Yeah, and I think we always recognize with a part-time, that's very much a revolving door. I mean, the intent is to give them some experience, and if we don't hire them, they go and get full-time jobs. I know. And I think when we're at full-time staff, and this is something we've been after for years, and when we are at full-time staff, we don't have to rely so much on those part-timers, so it's not such a big deal if we lose one here and there. But we haven't been there because of circumstances, so hopefully we'll be there in the near future though.
To the best of your ability, in the last 12 months past,
Yes.
how many part-time people have we hired only to lose them? Approximately.
In the last 12 months, we promoted 2 to full-time, and we've only lost just this one.
And John.
Oh yeah, he got full-time at Wapaka County.
Yeah,
So we've lost 2 part-timers to full-time positions in counties, and,
So we lost 2 part-timers,
yeah,
but 2 part-timers were promoted to full-time,
yes.
and they're currently employed here.
But that's with all departments, if they got a part-timer, they expect them to be going full-time somewhere,
Right.
if
Yeah.
not within their own department.
Yeah, part-time employees in our world it's a benefit to us to not have to pay benefits and,
Totally agree.
those types of things,
It's
but
not as dire then as I thought it would be.
no, and, yeah, I wouldn't say it's out of the norm,
So at what point would you be up to full-time status?
Well, with the chief of police and then through this hiring process, me, the one that we just tested for,
Full-time,
we went
right.
at full-time.
Okay, that's
Full-time.
good.
Yep,
Thank you.
that's all I got.
Thanks, Brian.
Any
Thank
further
you.
questions or comments for Brian? Library director's not here. Bob?
Nothing.
Building permit report is in your packet. Let's see, there's just for the school. Then we have presentation of accounts and other claims against the village.
The voucher list consists of deposit of payroll deductions, payment of loans, and vouchers number 24501 through 24532 in the amount of $79,855.26. Direct deposit payroll in the amount of $27,309.65. And water and sewer utility vouchers number 10253 through 10259 in the amount of $7,112.30.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Approved. Communications and miscellaneous business. Gold Cross ambulance run report and news are in your packet. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to comments and suggestions from citizens present. We will have any. That leaves us one more, Kelly.
I will make that motion.
And I will second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.